The first signs of betrayal always appear in retrospect, like pieces of a shattered mirror reflecting moments you were too blind to see. I remember the exact evening everything began to unravel, the night I first noticed the change in Matt's behavior. The restaurant was unusually quiet for a Thursday, and I had decided to surprise him with an impromptu visit. 20 years of marriage teaches you to read the subtle shifts in your partner's demeanor. The way Matt's shoulders tensed when I walked through the door of La Maison, the restaurant we had built together from the ground up, should have been my first warning. His eyes darted away too quickly, his smile a fraction too delayed. But I was Beth Morrison, managing partner at Morrison & Associates law firm, and I had spent 2 decades perfecting the art of seeing only what I wanted to see. "Beth, honey, what brings you here?" His voice carried an unfamiliar edge, like a knife wrapped in silk. Behind him, a young waitress, Hannah, I would later learn, quickly turned away, her movements too deliberate to be casual. Can't a wife surprise her husband? I matched his tone with practiced ease, watching as he unconsciously adjusted his wedding ring. A habit he'd developed recently, I realized. How many other signs had I missed? The restaurant hummed with the quiet energy of early evening service. Crystal glasses caught the light from imported Italian chandeliers, creating prisms that danced across white tablecloths. This was our dream, manifested in hardwood floors and hand-painted walls. Every detail carried our shared history, from the wine cellar Matt had designed to the legal contracts I had carefully crafted to protect our investment. Of course. Matt's recovery was smooth, practiced. He guided me to our table, the corner booth where we'd spent countless evenings planning menus and discussing expansion plans. "Let me get you a glass of that Bordeaux you love." I watched him retreat to the bar, noting how his path deliberately avoided the service station where Hannah stood arranging silverware. Her eyes followed him, holding a weight of familiarity that made my stomach clench. She couldn't have been more than 25, with that particular blend of confidence and vulnerability that makes men believe they can save her. My phone buzzed with a message from Lily, my closest friend and fellow partner at the firm. "Court prep tomorrow at 8. Bringing coffee and that file you needed." I sent back a quick acknowledgement, grateful for the momentary distraction from the scene unfolding before me. When Matt returned, he carried not only wine but also an elaborate appetizer I hadn't ordered. "Chef's new creation," he explained, his smile now firmly in place. "Tell me about your day, honey. That big case still keeping you busy?" I took a deliberate sip of wine, letting the rich flavors coat my tongue as I considered my response. The Taylor merger had indeed consumed my life for the past 3 months, but Matt's sudden interest felt performative. Usually, he glazed over at the mention of legal proceedings. "It's moving forward." I kept my voice neutral, watching his reactions with the same attention I gave to hostile witnesses. The opposition's trying to force a settlement, but they're working from a position of weakness. That's my girl, always the strategist. His laugh held a note of nervousness. Behind him, Hannah dropped a stack of menus, the clatter drawing his attention for a fraction too long. Over the next hour, I catalogued every glance, every subtle shift in his posture. The way he checked his phone when he thought I wasn't looking. The tension in his jaw when Hannah approached to clear our plates. The careful distance he maintained, as if proximity might reveal secrets written on his skin. Later that night, after Matt had fallen asleep, I sat in our home office reviewing security footage from the restaurant's cameras, a precaution I had insisted on after a series of break-ins in the neighborhood last year. The timestamps told their own story, Matt staying late, Hannah lingering after her shifts, private conversations in the wine cellar that lasted too long to be about inventory. My laptop screen cast a blue glow across the mahogany desk, another piece of our shared life, purchased to celebrate La Maison's 5th anniversary. I opened my encrypted email account and typed a message to my private investigator, "Need comprehensive background check." Subject, Hannah Mitchell. Current employment, La Maison Restaurant. Priority, urgent. The cursor blinked steadily, waiting for me to press send. 20 years of marriage, 2 decades of building a life together, all balanced on the edge of this moment. In the bedroom, Matt murmured in his sleep, probably dreaming of nouvelle cuisine and young waitresses with stars in their eyes. I hit send. The next morning, I maintained our routine with practiced precision. Coffee with 2 sugars for Matt, a quick kiss goodbye, the familiar dance of a marriage that might already be dead. But as I walked into my corner office at Morrison & Associates, I felt the first stirrings of something beyond betrayal, a cold, calculating anger that would have made my youngest clients proud. Lily was already waiting, coffee in hand and concern in her eyes. "Beth? You look like you're plotting a murder." "Not murder," I replied, setting my briefcase down with deliberate care. "Just justice." My phone buzzed with a text from Matt, working late tonight. Inventory. Another lie to add to the growing collection. I placed the phone face down on my desk and turned to the window, watching the city sprawl beneath me like a chessboard waiting for the first move. In court, they called me the shark, not for my aggression, but for my patience. I could circle a target for months, gathering evidence, building a case, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Matt had forgotten this about me, or perhaps he had never truly understood it. He was about to learn. The investigation report arrived that afternoon, a comprehensive dossier that confirmed my suspicions and added layers I hadn't anticipated. Hannah Mitchell, 24, had a history of relationships with restaurant owners in 3 different cities. Each ending with accusations of theft or attempted blackmail, but no formal charges. She was smarter than that, always staying just on the legal side of destruction. I closed the file and opened my calendar, blocking off the next evening. It was time to have dinner at La Maison again. This time, I would be the one with a script to follow, a performance to deliver. After all, every great revenge story starts with a simple truth: the best dishes are served cold. The restaurant took on a different character in the evening hours, when shadows lengthened and wine-loosened tongues spoke truths meant to stay buried. I arrived precisely at 7, wrapped in a black Armani suit that had seen me through a dozen high-stakes negotiations. The maitre d' recognized the steel in my stride and wordlessly led me to my usual table. Hannah was working the floor that night, her practiced grace a performance for the dining room stage. I watched her float between tables, noting how she touched her hair when she smiled, how she leaned just slightly too close to male patrons, all calculated movements in a choreography of manipulation I was only now beginning to recognize. When she approached my table, her smile faltered for just a moment. "Mrs. Morrison, what a pleasure to see you again. Would you like to start with our wine selection?" "Sit down, Hannah." My voice carried the same tone I used in depositions, soft, but leaving no room for refusal. "We need to discuss your business arrangement with my husband." The color drained from her face in stages, like watercolor bleeding into white paper. She glanced toward the kitchen, but Matt was conveniently occupied with a supplier meeting, one I had arranged through careful manipulation of delivery schedules. "I don't know what you mean," she started, but I cut her off with a gentle slide of a manila folder across the pristine tablecloth. 3 restaurants in 3 cities. The Copper Pot in Seattle, where owner James Morrison, no relation, lost $50,000 in wine inventory before discovering the books had been altered. Le Petit Jardin in Portland, where David Chen found himself facing harassment accusations until he agreed to a generous severance package. And now La Maison. I kept my voice low, intimate, as if we were discussing wine pairings rather than orchestrated destruction. Hannah sank into the chair across from me, her facade cracking like thin ice under pressure. "You don't understand," she whispered, fingers tracing the edge of the folder without opening it. "Matt promised dash. He promised to help you open your own cafe." I completed her sentence, watching the shock ripple across her features. "In exchange for your company during those late-night inventory sessions and private wine tastings. Tell me, did you approach him, or did he make the first move?" The question hung between us like smoke, acrid and suffocating. In the background, Dinner service continued its elaborate dance, plates delivered, wine poured, lives continuing their ordinary rhythms while my world realigned itself around this moment. He noticed me. Hannah's voice carried a tremor now, real emotion breaking through her practiced poise. Said I had potential, that he could mentor me. It wasn't supposed to. She trailed off, realizing too late that every word confirmed my suspicions. Wasn't supposed to what? Leave evidence. Get discovered. Break up a marriage. My laugh held no warmth. You're good, Hannah. Better than most. But you made one crucial mistake, you assumed I was just a wife. I opened the folder between us, revealing photographs, bank statements, text messages retrieved from cloud backups Matt didn't know I could access. Here's what's going to happen. You'll finish your shift tonight, collect your final paycheck, and disappear. No severance, no recommendations, no harassment claims. Just clean closure. And if I refuse? A flash of defiance crossed her face, quickly replaced by uncertainty as I smiled. Then I'll take great pleasure in dismantling your little operation piece by piece. Those previous incidents. They'll look like practice runs compared to what a motivated attorney with unlimited resources can accomplish. You're smart enough to recognize when you're outmatched. The weight of 2 decades of courtroom victories rode beneath my words. Hannah's eyes flickered to the kitchen again, seeking escape or salvation, finding neither. He loves me, she tried, one last desperate card played without conviction. No, he loves the reflection of himself he sees in your eyes, young, powerful, needed. It's a common enough delusion. I closed the folder with deliberate care. You have until the end of your shift to decide. Choose wisely. She fled the table without another word, composure shattered. I savored my wine, watching her stumble through the rest of her service, dropping orders and mixing up tables. The perfect image of the struggling young waitress, undone by the weight of her own schemes. Matt emerged from his meeting an hour later, stopping cold when he saw me. I caught his eye across the dining room and raised my glass in a mock toast. The blood drained from his face as he watched Hannah rush past him, tears barely contained. My phone buzzed, Lily, checking in. All good? First act complete, I texted back. Time for the main course. Matt approached my table like a man walking to his execution. Beth, what are you doing here? Enjoying dinner and the show. I gestured to the chair Hannah had vacated. Sit down, darling. We need to discuss the future of our restaurant. And our marriage. His hands shook as he lowered himself into the chair. Outside, the city lights blurred into a constellation of artificial stars, witnesses to the implosion of a life built on carefully maintained illusions. How long have you known? He asked, voice barely above a whisper. Long enough to build an airtight case. I signaled for the check, suddenly tired of the performance. Pack your things tonight. I'll have papers drawn up by morning. Beth, please, I can explain dash. Save it for your lawyer. I stood, smoothing non-existent wrinkles from my suit. Oh, and Matt. Your little protégé won't be joining you for tomorrow's inventory check. Consider her resignation effective immediately. I walked out of La Maison that night feeling lighter, as if I'd shed a skin of compromises and silent acceptances. The night air carried the promise of rain, of cleansing, of renewal. But as I drove home to an empty house and a marriage in ruins, I realized that victory often tastes more bitter than sweet. Lily was waiting on my doorstep with a bottle of scotch and 20 years of friendship. Ready for phase 2? She asked, holding up the bottle like a torch against the gathering dark. I took the bottle, considering its amber depths. You know what they say about revenge. That it's best served cold. Lily smiled, following me inside. No, I corrected, closing the door on the life I'd known. That it's just the beginning. The night after confrontation has its own peculiar geography, valleys of doubt carved between peaks of vindication, darkness pooling in the hollow spaces where certainty once lived. I sat in my home office, surrounded by the artifacts of a shared life now rendered foreign, wedding photos that felt like fiction, achievement plaques bearing both our names, the vintage wine rack Matt had installed when we first bought the house. Lily's presence anchored me to reality as I sifted through 2 decades of financial records, each statement a breadcrumb trail leading to deeper revelations. The scotch between us had grown warm, forgotten in the archaeology of betrayal. "He's been siphoning money from the restaurant," I murmured, spreading documents across my desk like tarot cards predicting a future I hadn't wanted to see. Small amounts, carefully disguised as supplier payments. Preparing for his exit strategy, or perhaps funding promises to his protégé. "The bastard's been playing a longer game than we thought." Lily leaned forward, her prosecutor's instincts engaged. "How long?" 6 months, at least. The timeline stretched before me like a crime scene reconstruction. Around the time Hannah started working at La Maison. Not enough to trigger automatic alerts, but sufficient to build a nest egg. He never expected me to look this closely. The knock at the door came near midnight. Matt returned to collect his things. I heard him fumbling with his keys, then remembering I'd already changed the locks. A small satisfaction, but I savored it nonetheless. "Beth?" His voice carried through the door, diminished by shame or perhaps just poor acoustics. "Please, we need to talk." Lily raised an eyebrow, silently offering to handle the confrontation. I shook my head, squaring my shoulders as I descended the stairs. "Some battles you must face alone, if only to prove to yourself that you can." I opened the door but maintained my position in the threshold, denying him entry to a space he'd forfeited through betrayal. He looked smaller somehow, stripped of the confidence that comes with successful deception. "Your things are packed in the garage," I informed him, my voice steady despite the tremors threatening to surface. I took the liberty of separating personal items from joint property. "Your lawyer can contact mine regarding the rest." "Lawyer?" "Beth, come on. We can work this out." He attempted a step forward, found himself blocked by my unwavering stance. 20 years of marriage deserves more than this. 20 years of marriage deserved more than your betrayal. The words tasted like ash and triumph. "Tell me, when did you start planning your exit? Was it before or after you started grooming Hannah for her role in your little drama?" His face contorted, a kaleidoscope of guilt and indignation. "It wasn't like that. I was mentoring her, helping her achieve her dreams. You've been so focused on your career lately. Don't." The word cut through his excuses like a blade. "Don't you dare make this about my success. I built my career while supporting yours, while being the perfect wife, the perfect business partner. I didn't just help you achieve your dreams, I made them possible." The truth of it hung between us, heavy as unspoken goodbyes. Behind me, I heard Lily moving through the house, a silent guardian ensuring this confrontation remained civilized. "You'll receive the divorce papers tomorrow," I continued, professional mask firmly in place. "I suggest you review them carefully. I've been generous in the initial terms, considering the circumstances. That generosity has an expiration date. You're going to destroy everything we built together." A note of desperation crept into his voice. "The restaurant, our home, our life." "No, Matt. You did that all on your own." I stepped back, preparing to close the door. "Your things are in the garage. Don't forget to leave your keys." Later, after the sound of his car had faded and Lily had gone home, I stood in my bedroom, systematically removing every trace of him. Suits to the donation pile, photographs to a box marked "past," his preferred side of the bed stripped bare. Each action a ritual of severance, a ceremony of ending. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "You think you've won, but you don't know the whole story. Hannah, making one last attempt at relevance." I blocked the number without responding, adding it to my growing file of evidence. Sleep eluded me that night, replaced by a parade of memories rewritten through the lens of suspicion. How many business dinners had been rendezvous? How many late-night inventory checks had been betrayals? The questions multiplied like cancer cells, malignant and unstoppable. Dawn found me in my home office again, reviewing the case that had consumed my professional life for the past months. The Taylor merger, a complex dance of corporate interests and personal vendettas, suddenly seemed straightforward compared to the unraveling of my own life. A new email arrived from my private investigator, additional information found regarding HM previous incident in Chicago, 2019. Different name, same pattern. Sending details. I opened the attachment with trembling fingers, each new revelation a piece in a puzzle I hadn't known I was solving. The picture emerging was larger than a simple affair, more complex than mere betrayal. Matt and Hannah weren't just carrying on an illicit romance, they were orchestrating something bigger, something that threatened everything I'd spent my life building. Lily's words from the night before echoed in my mind, sometimes the best revenge isn't about destruction, it's about reconstruction. Building yourself stronger from the ruins they left behind. I reached for my phone, dialing a number I rarely used. James. It's Beth Morrison. Remember that favor you owe me? I need access to your contacts in restaurant licensing. Yes, it's urgent. No, this isn't about a client, it's personal. The sun climbed higher, painting my office in shades of possibility. On my desk, the divorce papers waited for final review, each clause a brick in the wall I was building between past and future. But as I studied the financial records spread before me, a new understanding began to take shape. This wasn't just about saving myself anymore. It was about justice, yes, but also about transformation, about emerging from the chrysalis of betrayal not just changed, but evolved. Matt and Hannah had unknowingly handed me the tools of their own undoing, and I intended to use them with surgical precision. I opened my laptop, fingers hovering over the keyboard as I prepared to draft an email that would set the next phase in motion. The cursor blinked expectantly, a metronome keeping time with my racing thoughts. Time to change the game, I whispered to the empty room, and began to type. Truth arrives in layers, each revelation peeling back another veneer of illusion until reality stands naked and unforgiving before you. The Chicago files landed in my inbox like stones dropped into still water, sending ripples of understanding that threatened to drown what remained of my composure. Hannah Mitchell had been Andrea Martinez then, working at an upscale bistro where the owner's sudden heart attack had preceded a mysterious transfer of ownership. The pattern crystallized with brutal clarity. She wasn't just a waitress seeking advancement through seduction. She was a professional predator, and Matt wasn't her victim. He was her accomplice. I sat in my office at Morrison & Associates, watching rain trace patterns down the windows like tears I refused to shed. The skyline beyond had become a watercolor blur, buildings bleeding into the gray horizon like the certainties I'd once held dear. The licensing board meeting is scheduled for next week, Lily announced, materializing in my doorway with a stack of files and concern etched across her features. Are you sure you want to do this? Once we start, there's no going back. The question hung between us, heavy with implications. I turned from the window, feeling the weight of my next words like anchors in my throat. They're planning to force a sale of La Maison. The financial irregularities, the systematic withdrawals, it's all preparation for a hostile takeover. Understanding dawned in Lily's eyes as she sank into the chair across from me. The separate accounts you found. Shell companies, I confirmed, spreading the documents before her like a tarot reader revealing an inevitably dark future. Hannah, or whatever her real name is, has done this before. She finds successful restaurants with vulnerable owners, creates compromising situations, then orchestrates a crisis that forces a sale at a fraction of the true value. The revelation tasted bitter on my tongue, a poison distilled from years of trust transformed into weapons against me. I'd spent the past week reconstructing their plan from fragments of evidence, bank statements, property records, liquor license applications filed under names that led to empty offices and disconnected phones. Matt knew, I continued, each word a shard of glass in my mouth. He's been laying the groundwork for months, inflating supplier costs, hiding cash transactions, creating the appearance of financial instability. All while playing the devoted husband who just happened to mentor an ambitious young waitress. Lily leaned forward, prosecutor's instincts fully engaged. But they didn't count on you being you. A laugh escaped me, sharp as broken promises. No, they didn't. They saw what everyone sees, the successful wife, too busy with her own career to notice the cracks in her marriage. They never looked deeper, never considered that I might understand predation better than they do. My computer chimed with a new email, confirmation from James that the licensing board had received my anonymous tip about potential fraud at La Maison. The first domino, positioned to fall at precisely the right moment. The board will freeze all transfer applications pending investigation, I explained, feeling the familiar calm of strategy settling over me like armor. Meanwhile, our friends at the health department will find just enough violations to justify temporary closure for inspection. Buying time, Lily nodded, following my reasoning with practiced ease. But for what? I opened my desk drawer, withdrawing a thick folder labeled Project Phoenix, named for the creature that rises from its own ashes, transformed by the very flames meant to destroy it. For this. Inside lay the framework of resurrection, plans for a new restaurant group, built from the ashes of Matt's betrayal. Every contract he'd signed, every supplier relationship he'd cultivated, every loyal employee who'd been kept in the dark about his schemes, all of it documented, analyzed, and repurposed. They thought they were dismantling my life, I said, voice steady despite the tempest raging beneath my calculated exterior. Instead, they've given me the blueprint for something stronger. My phone buzzed, another text from Hannah, using yet another burner number, last chance to back off. You don't want this fight. The threat washed over me like rain on windows, visible but unable to touch the steel core of resolve I'd forged from betrayal. I turned to Lily, feeling the sharp edges of my smile. Time to show them what happens when you underestimate a shark. That evening, I drove past La Maison, watching the dinner service unfold through windows that no longer held any warmth for me. Matt stood at the bar, performing his usual role of charming owner-host, while Hannah worked the floor with practiced grace. They looked confident, secure in their orchestrated destruction of my world. They had no idea that every smile, every seemingly innocent interaction, was being documented. No idea that their carefully constructed house of cards was balanced on a foundation I was systematically eroding. No idea that their greatest mistake wasn't betraying me, it was teaching me exactly how they operated. I parked across the street, watching the dance of deceit play out before me. In my bag lay the final pieces of evidence, proof of similar schemes in 3 other cities, each leading back to the same shadowy investment group. Each failure in their plan creating a stronger link in the chain I was forging around their futures. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and reflective, mirror-black surfaces throwing back distorted images of the life I was preparing to dismantle. I touched the folder in my bag, feeling the weight of justice waiting to be served. Check your email, I texted Lily. Operation Phoenix goes live at midnight. The city lights blurred around me as I pulled away from the curb, each star of reflection a beacon guiding me toward a future I was now architecting with the same precision they had used to try to destroy me. In my rearview mirror, La Maison grew smaller, no longer the monument to shared dreams it had once been, but a chrysalis from which something far more powerful was about to emerge. The night spread before me like a blank canvas, ready to be painted with the colors of retribution. And as I drove home to finalize the last details of their undoing, I felt something I hadn't experienced since the first discovery of betrayal, anticipation. Vengeance, I've learned, is not a straight path but a labyrinth of mirrors, each reflection showing a different version of the self you're becoming. As midnight approached, I sat in my home office, watching the digital display count down the moments until Operation Phoenix would ignite. The familiar space felt charged with potential energy, like the air before a storm breaks. The licensing board's preliminary findings had landed with the force of a hammer striking anvil, each documented irregularity another spark in the inferno I'd carefully constructed. Matt's desperate voice messages had grown increasingly frantic throughout the day, a symphony of panic that I allowed to play in the background as I orchestrated his downfall. "Beth, please. The board is threatening to revoke our license. Everything we've built." His latest message trailed off into static, the words hollow as the promises he'd broken. I let my finger hover over the delete button before saving it instead, more evidence for the growing arsenal. Lily's text arrived precisely at 11:45 p.m., Health Department report filed. Citations for critical violations being processed now. The mechanism of destruction clicked into place with watchmaker precision. Each component, the licensing investigation, the health code violations, the supplier audit I'd quietly initiated, formed part of a greater machine designed not just for revenge, but for renaissance. My phone lit up with Hannah's number, her real one this time, not a burner. Desperation had finally stripped away her careful facades. I answered, curious to hear what song she'd sing when cornered. "You have no idea what you're doing," she began, her voice trembling with something between rage and fear. "We have connections, resources dash. Like the ones you used in Chicago?" I interrupted, savoring the sharp intake of breath on the other end. "Or perhaps you mean your friends from the Portland operation? Tell me, does Matt know about Michael Thompson? The real estate developer you were seeing while orchestrating his downfall?" The silence stretched between us like a tripwire, ready to detonate her carefully constructed world. I continued, each word a precise incision into her composure. "Your pattern was elegant, I'll give you that. Find a successful restaurant, seduce the owner, create financial chaos, then sweep in with your investment group to save the business. But you made one critical miscalculation." "And what's that?" Her attempt at defiance couldn't mask the tremor in her voice. "You assumed I was just another obstacle to be removed. A distracted wife too busy with her career to notice the decay eating at the foundations of her marriage. But you never asked yourself why I was so successful, did you? Never wondered what kind of woman becomes known as the shark in legal circles?" Through my office window, I watched the city lights flicker like distant stars, each one a possible universe where this story played out differently. But in this reality, in this moment, I was no longer the betrayed wife seeking justice. I had become something far more dangerous, a woman with nothing left to lose and everything to rebuild. "Check your email," I told her, my voice carrying the same calm I used in courtroom victories. "You'll find documentation of every scheme you've run, every false identity you've used, every fraudulent transaction you've orchestrated. In about." I glanced at my watch, 10 minutes, copies of those files will reach the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, the state attorney's office, and several very interested journalists. "You're bluffing," but her voice had lost all conviction. "Am I? Ask Matt about the offshore accounts he thought were so well hidden. Ask him about the shell companies that lead back to your investment group. Better yet, ask him about the wife he underestimated." The clock struck midnight as I ended the call, its chimes echoing through the empty house like bells tolling the death of one life and the birth of another. On my laptop screen, dozens of emails launched simultaneously, each one a carefully aimed arrow finding its mark in the heart of their enterprise. Within minutes, my phone erupted with notifications. Matt's name appeared first, then his lawyers, followed by a cascade of messages from suppliers, employees, and board members. The carefully constructed house of cards was collapsing, and I watched from my tower of truth as the pieces fell. Lily arrived shortly after, carrying a bottle of champagne and wearing the satisfied smile of a co-conspirator. "First reports are hitting the restaurant forums," she announced, setting 2 glasses on my desk. "The health department's findings are trending in industry groups. Your timing was impeccable." I accepted the glass she offered, watching bubbles rise like the hopes I'd buried and resurrected. They thought they were writing a story of conquest, I mused, feeling the weight of transformation settle around my shoulders like a mantle. Instead, they became characters in a tale of resurrection. My computer chimed with new alerts, confirmations that Operation Phoenix's secondary protocols were engaging. By morning, La Maison's suppliers would have new contracts with my newly formed restaurant group. The loyal staff would receive offers of position transfers, their jobs secured under better management. The Phoenix was rising, but not from the ashes they'd intended to create. To new beginnings, Lily raised her glass, but I wasn't quite ready for celebration. Not yet, I said, opening a new document on my laptop. There's one more scene to write in this story. The cursor blinked expectantly as I began to type, each word a brick in the foundation of my reconstructed future. Outside, the city hummed with nocturnal energy, unaware that within its gleaming towers, empires were falling and rising with the precision of a master architect's design. Tomorrow would bring chaos for them, investigations, accusations, the unraveling of carefully laid plans. But for me, it would bring something far more precious, the dawn of a new identity, forged in the crucible of betrayal and tempered by the knowledge that sometimes the greatest strength comes from being underestimated. I touched the empty ring finger on my left hand, feeling not the absence of what was lost, but the presence of what I had gained, an understanding that some fires don't destroy. They transform. Victory tastes different than I imagined, not sweet like revenge fantasies promise, but complex and layered, like aged wine that holds memories in its depths. I stand at the windows of my new office, watching dawn paint the city in shades of possibility, while behind me, multiple screens display the systematic dismantling of Matt and Hannah's carefully constructed world. The headlines scroll past like a litany of justice: FBI investigates restaurant fraud ring, La Maison owner faces criminal charges, industry stunned by widespread scheme revelation. Each story a brick in the wall between who I was and who I've become, between the woman who trusted blindly and the one who learned to see in the dark. My phone hasn't stopped vibrating since the story broke. Matt's messages have evolved from desperate pleas to incoherent rage, each one documenting his descent from confident manipulator to cornered prey. Hannah, true to her nature, disappeared the moment the first warrant was served, but this time, there would be no convenient escape, no new identity to slip into like a borrowed coat. The FBI just picked her up at Logan Airport, Lily announces, entering without knocking, a privilege earned through unwavering loyalty. Apparently, she was trying to board a flight to the Caymans. Had quite the collection of passports with her. I don't turn from the window, but I feel my lips curve into something that's not quite a smile. Let me guess, the accounts she was trying to access have been frozen. Every last one. Lily's reflection joins mine in the glass, both of us watching the city wake to a new reality. The forensic accountants are having a field day with the paper trail. Turns out our Hannah wasn't just a small-time con artist, she was the point person for an international restaurant acquisition scheme. Matt was just her latest mark, though he proved more willing than most. The irony tastes like ashes and triumph on my tongue. Matt, who thought he was the predator, had been prey all along, though his willing participation makes him no less culpable. I think of him now, probably sitting in some sterile interrogation room, realizing too late that his betrayal of our marriage was just the beginning of his undoing. The board approved the transfer this morning, I say, finally turning to face Lily. Phoenix Restaurant Group is now officially the owner of La Maison, along with 3 other establishments that were caught in Hannah's web. We're keeping the staff, upgrading the facilities, and implementing new management structures. The portfolio of restaurants spreads across my desk like a battle plan realized, not just businesses saved, but lives protected, jobs secured, legacies preserved. From the ashes of betrayal, something stronger has emerged, something built not on blind trust but on understanding the darkest corners of human nature. You know, Lily observes, studying my face with the insight of decades of friendship, most people would have just divorced him and moved on. Taken half in the settlement and called it justice. A laugh escapes me, carrying echoes of the woman I used to be. Most people haven't spent 20 years becoming the kind of lawyer who understands that true justice isn't about punishment, it's about transformation. My computer chimes with a new email, confirmation that the last piece of Operation Phoenix is in place. I open it, feeling a sense of completion settle over me like a mantle. The foundation paperwork is finalized, I explain, turning the screen so Lily can see. Every restaurant in the Phoenix Group will participate in a mentorship program for aspiring female restaurateurs. Legal support, business training, legitimate pathways to ownership, everything Hannah pretended to want but tried to steal instead. Turning poison into medicine, Lily nods, understanding as always. Have you thought about what you'll say to him? The question catches me off guard, though I should have expected it. Matt has been requesting a meeting through his lawyers, one last conversation before his plea deal is finalized. I've been avoiding the decision, unsure if seeing him would strengthen my resolve or crack the armor I've built around my heart. I thought I needed closure, I say slowly, testing the words like stepping stones across troubled water. But I realized something during all this. Closure isn't a conversation or a confrontation. It's not something someone else can give you. It's a door you close yourself, when you're ready to stop looking back through it. Outside my window, the morning sun has fully risen, turning the city into a landscape of light and shadow, each building a monument to possibilities both realized and squandered. Somewhere in that urban maze, Matt sits in custody, Hannah faces federal charges, and their entire network of fraud unravels like a poorly woven tapestry. But here, in this office with its view of futures yet to be written, I am no longer defined by their betrayal. The woman who trusted blindly died in that first moment of discovery, reborn as someone stronger, wiser, more capable of both justice and mercy. My phone buzzes one last time, another message from Matt. This time, I don't even look at it before deleting it and blocking the number. Some chapters need to end for new ones to begin. The first mentorship applications are coming in next week, I tell Lily, turning away from the window and toward the future I've architected from the ruins of betrayal. We should start reviewing candidates. She smiles, recognizing the shift in my voice from reflection to action. Ready to build something new? I look around my office, at the skyline that once witnessed my unraveling and now stands witness to my resurrection, at the papers that document not just revenge but rebirth, at the empty ring finger that no longer feels like a loss but a liberation. I already have, I answer, and for the first time in months, my laughter carries no edge of bitterness, no weight of grief. It rings clear and true, like a bell announcing not an ending, but a beginning. The sun climbs higher over the city, casting long shadows that shrink with each passing moment. In their recession, I see a metaphor for my own journey, from darkness to light, from betrayal to triumph, from endings to starts. And in the bright morning light, I am finally, irrevocably, free.